Croeso friends, welcome back to Opus L&I, where it's not fall. I'm so annoyed that it's not fall. I really want it to be fall. Instagram has collectively decided that summer is over, and everyone that lives north of the 35th parallel has started posting these delightfully fall-colored pumpkin spice pictures about how close we are to spooky season. It's 96 degrees here. 96. That's like 35.5 degrees Celsius. You'd think that after living in Texas for 11 years, I would be used to the fact that we don't get autumn here until at least November, but I'm not. Well, in honor of it being not fall, and because I need to make some new clothes for the upcoming Tournament of Defense, I thought I would make myself a Tudor-era partlet. That is a sleeveless garment worn over the neck and shoulders. They can be worn under a kirtle to simulate a shirt or over a kirtle for, I don't know, fashion. The former are usually made from linen and often feature elaborate embroidery. The latter are sometimes linen and sometimes wool. The linen ones often show up in Flemish and other Low Country fashion in the mid-16th century, while the woolen ones, lined or unlined, showed up all over England, France, and the Low Countries. My plan is to make a black wool partlet lined with white linen that I can wear over my wine kirtle. So everyone, grab your cuppa and tell me in the comments what you're drinking. I've got August Uncommon Low Country because it seemed fitting and also because it's delicious. It's this dark black tea with lapsang and buckwheat and barley malt, all of which combine into this dark, smoky, burnt sugary tea that tastes a little bit like bourbon, which is perfect because it being 96 degrees in September definitely makes me want to drink. Let's get into it. Before I do anything else, I am going to need a pattern. I decided to trace the general shape from this Elizabethan jacket because I know it fits well over my kirtle. If I didn't have a garment like this, I would probably have just used a commercial shirt pattern and adjusted it during the fitting stage. Because the shoulder seam sits toward the back, I used a dashed line to indicate the top of the shoulder on the front piece to add the correct amount to the back. I ended up redrawing it later to have the seam sit on the top of the shoulder because I wanted an integrated collar instead of a separate one. Once I had the general wiggly outline, I traced over that with a ruler to help with the straight lines and angles. This is also where I added the collar to the neckline for that turned back lapel look we saw in the English partlet picture. Since the patterns ended up overlapping, I traced them onto a new piece of paper. This is one reason I really love using tracing paper instead of butcher paper, at least when I'm figuring out a new pattern. It's so easy to make a new iteration whenever I need to. First mock-up using some linen from an old chiton. I only pinned this one together instead of stitching it. It's not something I usually do, but for a garment this small, it's not a huge deal. Mostly, I just need to make sure I don't stab myself. Oh, and I'm not wearing my kirtle, but I did measure myself off camera to make sure that I was within tolerances before doing this fitting. I decided that although I love a dramatic collar, this one was maybe a little high and I was worried about it standing up and back without some additional support, which I didn't really want to fuss with for this project. Once I had the refinements made, I traced off the final pattern, making sure to note on each piece that there are no seam allowances, along with the date and recipient. Once that's all finished, I cut new linen and wool pieces. I traced along the actual stitching line on the pattern pieces and cut the seam allowance outside of that. It allows for greater precision while pinning and sewing and absolves me from having to make perfectly spaced seam allowances on each piece. The downside is that I can't trace each piece onto 2 layers of fabric at once, but these pieces are so small that that doesn't bother me. After all of the pieces are cut out, I pinned them together along the marked seam lines. I've been craving a hand sewing project lately, and this little partlet is perfect for that. I used Burnley and Trowbridge linen thread in black and white, waxed with beeswax, and my handy dandy tailor's thimble. Because this partlet is going to sit fairly tightly against the body, I decided to use a backstitch. It will give the most strength on load-bearing seams like the center back. I did end up using a backstitch to sew the shell and lining together as well, not because it was structurally necessary, but because I got into a backstitching grooves. This partlet is overly sturdy. I sewed the partlet together at neckline and armholes, leaving the tiny side seams and bottom hem open so I could turn everything right side out. I forgot to get footage of me ironing the seams, so please conjure a mental image of me using my awesome iron right here. I turned the seam allowances at the bottom hem to the inside and felled them together before pressing that hem too. Then I did the same thing for the side seams, and voila! Stay tuned after this brief commercial break to see how I make the side seam fastenings. Lots of partlets are depicted as being fastened under the arms with ties or pins, but neither of those were quite what I wanted. I already have side ties for my kirtle, and I didn't want too many dangly things, and pins under my arms are just a recipe for tetanus-related disaster. Instead, I decided to try and make my own hooks and eyes. The process is pretty straightforward. For the hooks, I cut some silver-plated copper wire into 2-inch lengths, used round pliers to bend the ends into loops, and bent them in half so that the loops sat next to each other at the base of what is a very questionably shaped wire sculpture. Then I used the same round pliers to bend that into a hook. For the eyes, I started with 1-inch length of wire, made the same kinds of loops at each end, and then bent the middle around the base of the round pliers to create that eye loop shape. I also used a mini hammer and metal plate to harden the wire. Giving it a few firm taps makes it less likely for the wire to bend out of shape. These hooks and eyes are closer to the shapes of hooks and eyes in period, but the downside is they lack that little bump on the hook that keeps the eye from sliding back out so easily. I did have some trouble keeping them together without the garment being under a bit of tension. But that's okay. Now that I understand that, I can plan for it. Once that's finished, all that's left is to sew on the hooks and eyes at the side seam. I'm again using the waxed linen thread in black, just in case any of the stitches show from the outside, and the buttonhole stitch, because I think it's pretty. Thanks for coming with me today. I know it was just a little project, but I do have some bigger ones coming up soon, hopefully as the weather gets cooler sometime. I hope. I did want to take a quick moment and say thank you to everyone who watched during COSI and helped make that endeavor a rousing success. And welcome to everyone new who found me through COSI. I am so excited you're here and I can't wait to see what we get up to together. We have hit 5,000 croissants on my tiny little channel, and I am so grateful to every one of you. As promised, I am giving away a pair of 18th century pockets over on my Instagram to celebrate. I'm so sorry that I can't do it here on the channel, but YouTube has policies preventing me from doing that, unfortunately. I think the next time I do a giveaway, I'll run it through something like Rafflecopter or some other service that is specifically made for that. For now though, I will put the link to the Instagram post in the description box below if you would like to enter. You have until September 10th at midnight CST. And now that COSI is over, I did want to also take a couple of minutes to talk a little bit more in depth about my upcoming appearance at the Scuola de Fabris? Scuola de Fabris? The second annual Tournament of Defense. This is an event taking place in Newman's Castle in Bellevue, Texas on September 6th. There will be both a rapier fighting track and a material culture track, and you can do both. But the material culture track is where I will be teaching along with Matthew Nagy from The Modern Maker, Francis Class, and Meg Duffy Vaughn from Tied to History. I will be teaching two classes, a history and practical workshop on gores, gussets, and godets, and a very brief history on queerness in pre-Enlightenment Europe. If any of this sounds interesting to you, check out the link in the description where you can learn more about the event. Oh, and just in case, please be assured that they do have a robust COVID masking and vaccination policy. Another small administrative note for the next video. It's been 6 months since I took my last break, so instead of a scripted video, I will be doing a YouTube live video at my normal release time, 1 p.m. CST. Hopefully doing some hand sewing, probably drinking some tea. If you can, bring your handwork and come have a cuppa with me while we chat about upcoming projects and some directions that I am thinking of taking the channel in. If you liked this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell if you haven't already. I upload every other Friday, except for the next other Friday, of course. If you would like to find me on social media, I am at OpusLNI everywhere, and all of those links will be in the description box below, along with the link to my coffee where you can tip, subscribe, or treat yourself to a little something from the shop. As always, friends, be kind, do the work, continue supporting marginalized people, and keep creating. Will.